All right, gang, welcome aboard. Once again, it's time for the Mac Forum video chat. I hope that you guys enjoy the information we have for you this week. I got a couple things I want to be sure that I mention to you this week, just kind of get things. And one of the things that I want to be sure that I mention to you is we have a thing going in the forum. Uh, that has been a little bit of an issue lately, and I want to be sure I alert you, particularly those of you that are new members. And the thread, which is in our community information area, in community announcements, and I'll have a link to it in the show notes, of course, as usual, is called Please Read, and it's Watch Out for Trolls. We've had some issues over the last several weeks with one or two people creating numerous alternate accounts and essentially trolling the forum. Now, we have in the past been dealing with this behind the scenes. The administrative team, the admins, mods, has done an excellent job of getting rid of this kind of thing either before the membership sees it or shortly after. The reason we put this thread in here is that in the past week or so, one particular person has started creating user accounts where the user ID looks almost exactly like one of our admins. And they've done it a couple of times and sent PMs to a couple of members, and essentially, if you don't look at the user ID very carefully, it looks like they've gotten a note or a PM from an administrator. So we thought we would put that there to warn all of our current members, and hopefully our prospective members will read it and kind of understand that we don't have a lot of tolerance for this kind of stuff. And we're going to take as many steps as we have to keep it a good, friendly community for folks to deal with. All right, now, you come to Mac Forum in part, usually, because you're looking for some information. And a lot of times we will ask you to post some information about your machine. Specifications. That gives us an idea of what Mac we're dealing with, what the potential limitations are. And sometimes the initial post will be very sort of generic. I need help. Mac is doing this. What do I do? But there's no specifications. So I thought I would put in the links tonight a post that, as you can see from the date, was written about 3 years ago, but it was still relevant. And it has to do with how to write a quality post. Some things about what you might want to include, not include. And it gives you some examples of some posts that are not so good because they don't leave enough information, and other posts that are a little bit better, okay? And it gives you some ideas on how to get that information in and be very concise about it. Okay, so give this a look. If you're making your first post in the forum, sometimes you can save yourself a few posts and get an answer faster if you can provide this information in your initial post. Okay, now let's move on to some more of the forum content that we have. We have a security thread in the forum, and over the last several weeks, we've had members posting with regards to some phishing scams. Okay, a phishing scam essentially is someone trying to get information by being misleading. In this case, I've linked to something from Apple's website about phishing emails, fake virus alerts, and phony support calls and other kinds of scams. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit tonight just to give you some ideas, some of the things that are going on. First of all, let's start with one of their suggestions about protecting your Apple ID. Don't share your Apple ID, password, temporary verification codes with anybody. Apple will never ask you for this information, so they're not going to ask you for your Apple ID password. Okay? Um, the only instance that I've ever had where they had to have a password is I ran into an issue with my email and calendar when we were making the shift from Mobile Me to iCloud, if you remember that. And in the process of that change, I suddenly lost the ability to sync my calendar, and the system thought that I had thousands of entries and I could not get into it to do anything. When I called the support people, one of the people there asked for temporary access to check something, but I gave them that access. I contacted them. They did not contact me and ask for this kind of information, and it was a very short time. I immediately went in afterwards and changed the information. So you had a very short window there where they knew the password strictly because they needed it to access something and fix it. But normally, under normal circumstances, you're not going to be asked for that information. They suggest you use two-factor authentication. And if you have believed that your Apple ID has been compromised, change your password immediately. And even if you don't think it's been compromised, it's a good idea to change your password regularly. Here you have a note about suspicious phone calls. People will call claiming to be from Apple, telling you that you won money or iTunes gift cards, things of that nature. And in exchange, of course, you have to tell them your account information so they can credit your account. Always, always, always verify that this is actually an Apple person you're talking about. Press them on this. Try to get some kind of incontrovertible proof that they are associated with Apple. One way to do that, okay, is they don't make these unsolicited, or in the industry they're sometimes referred to as cold calls. Apple doesn't cold call customers and say, hey, Mr. So-and-so, you have won, thing X. You have won $100 iTunes gift. No, not going to happen. I've gotten some of these phishing emails. The tip-off for me was, first of all, the grammar was horrible. There were some spelling errors. That caught my attention right away, because those kinds of emails related to your iCloud account, your Apple ID, don't leave Cupertino without being proofread. They may be a form letter, but somebody's proofread them. And when I went up and clicked on the contact information to see what mail account it had been mailed to, it had been mailed to an email account that I had not used actively in several years, and I had never shared that email address with Apple. And I mean never, in none of the information that I had ever contacted Apple with. All of the email accounts that I've had over the years, and I've used 2 or 3 different accounts to contact Apple over the years because of changes in service providers and things of that nature. But never once had I used this email with Apple. So there was no reason for it to be there. So this gives you some good information about that. I'll post a link to this, and I may double these up in the security thread as well. Also, here's another one. I was on the Apple site recently, just last night as a matter of fact. And this is another one from someone where they had been told that their Apple account had been disabled or locked. And I included some information here. Once again, it's got some links to what to do if you get an email like this, some ideas. and it gives you some legitimate things to do. If you forget your passcode, if you forget if your Apple ID has become disabled for some reason, okay, if your Apple ID is locked, these are some links to some Apple support articles that are there. And as you can see from the date, this is current, goes back to the to the 9th of this month. And also, now the next one I want to be sure that I mention. This is Apple NYC Scam 212. And it's a post from someone who got a call, and when he looked at the caller ID, it appeared to be from Apple in their New York City Fifth Avenue store. Okay, so the number looked, when you look at the caller ID, looked like it was coming from Apple Fifth Avenue store. And this person got a little bit suspicious. And as it turns out, this probably, once again, remember what I said about Apple not making cold calls? This is probably a scam, okay? And this is one that was recent enough. This happened in July, that Apple was just beginning to get wind of this. It seems like what someone is doing is spoofing phone numbers. So that, and by spoofing, I mean they're dialing from one number, and when you read it on your caller ID, it appears to have come from something else. I've gotten a couple of these recently where a call that I know was not local appears to come from a local phone number. I've also been on the other side of that, where someone got a phone call from what appears to be my phone number. I know I didn't call them because there's nothing in my call log about calling them, but yet they were able to send me a snapshot of their call log. They sent me a text message wanting to know, who are you and why did you call me? And when I said I didn't call anybody, they sent me a snapshot of their call log. It has my phone number on it. Well, I had not made any outgoing phone calls on my phone in about 24 hours when I got their note. So be aware of the fact that it is relatively easy to spoof phone numbers. If you get a cold call like that, somebody claiming to be from Apple, call Apple back at a known good number. In other words, I suggest that you put that customer service number into your phone or have it handy. Call them back. Find out if they called. I doubt seriously. The only time I've ever gotten a call from Apple, okay, in the entirety, almost 3 decades of time that I have been using Apple products, I've gotten a call from Apple Computer exactly twice. And in both cases, it was because I made a contact with Apple support through their normal support routine. I contacted them. I had an issue that I needed some help resolving. We were on the phone for 15 or 20 minutes, and the person that I spoke to could not resolve it immediately. They asked if they could call me back the next day. Okay? And if I had said no, they would have been perfectly comfortable with me calling them back. Okay? But I gave them permission to call me. In other words, it was not a cold call. I initiated that contact. Apple, as I say, doesn't make cold calls. So when you get that kind of thing, be suspicious right away. I'm going to put a link to all of these discussions in the show notes to let you see and know what is coming up and what you can do with some of this stuff. Okay, now the next one that I want to mention to you, this is our Mac OS tip of the week here. What if you want to transfer your old iMessage conversation or attachment from one computer to another? Okay, you ever wonder how you do that? And let's say, for example, that you don't want to use Migration Assistant, which is one way you could move it. But what if you don't want to do that? I mean, what if you're like me and you're kind of hands-on and you like poking around in the system, or and I'm warning you, if you poke around in the system, sometimes you're gonna mess up. And brother, I gotta tell you, when I mess them up, sometimes I make some big ones. Okay, but once in a while, you're gonna need, say, just the iMessage archives. Okay, you don't need to use Migration Assistant because you don't need everything. Well, here's what you do. All right, I'm going to go into here. I'm going to hide my little message window when it comes up because I really don't need that right now for what I want to show you. In Messages, I'm going to go to Preferences, okay? And there is a way in there to save your content. Save messages, okay, right here. I'm going to check that as the message goes. And now, when I go, I'm going to go now, when I've told it to save the history, I'm going to go to the Finder, and I'm going to send it to my user folder. That's what that tilde is for. Library, and inside the library folder is a folder called Messages. Okay? You want to grab the contents of that and transfer it to the same place, okay, in your new machine. So it's still going to be, you're going to move it from your user library folder to the user library folder on your new machine. Okay? That's the way you go about moving this. That's a relatively easy way to do it. All right? You can use AirDrop to do it. You can use file sharing to do it. Either way will work. So that's a good, handy thing to have in mind here. All right, now I'm going to try to show you. Let me get QuickTime going here on my computer because I want to show you something from QuickTime that I have going here. I want to show you a quick clip. One of the things that I got sent recently, my wife sent me an email just, probably 2 hours before the show about a problem that people are running into on the subway sometimes. They will get an AirDrop request. Somebody wants to share something with them via AirDrop. And when they click OK, allow, it turns out to be somebody wanting to shall we say, email some questionable content to, not email, but AirDrop questionable content to them. Pictures of their anatomy, you name it. So we're going to show you real quickly how to turn this off. Let me get a new movie recording here so I can get a recording of my iPhone screen. All right, I didn't want iTunes. We're going to get rid of that, get that out of the way. All right, I want to get my iPhone up. All right, and let me just show you my phone. My phone went to sleep here for a second, but let me show you what I mean. I'm going to show you a quick way. If you want to quickly disable AirDrop, okay? In other words, you want to do it on a case-by-case basis. Here's one way to do it. Swipe up to get to your control center. All right, and you see right here where it says AirDrop receiving. You're going to tap there, and you have some options. I'm going to force it over to AirPlay for a second. Now, AirDrop receiving. For AirDrop, right there in that segment, you can change it to everyone or contacts. So you can receive something from everyone or from just certain contacts. That's where you would make that change. It seems to be sticking for me right now. All right, so, but that's the easy way. Or if you want to do it real quickly on a case-by-case basis, you want to disable something. I can set that, accept it from never. In other words, I don't want to accept AirDrop requests. I don't, or if I do, all right, I'm going to get rid of this because I don't need to get into iTunes Store at the moment. It just triggered, okay. Now, let's look at the AirDrop receiving option that I was telling you about. It's not loading for me right now, but your options here, you can turn AirDrop completely off on your phone. In other words, people who are nearby cannot find you. You can set it to only people in your contact list, or you can set it to everyone, depending upon which way you want it to go. That's the fast way to do it. If you want something a little differently, something a little more permanent, okay, I'm going to get rid of the iTunes thing here, and let me show you the other option for getting rid of it. This is a little screencast that I made a minute ago to show you the other way to turn off AirDrop on your phone. This is a little bit, has a step or two more, and it's good if you want to make a more permanent change. The first thing you're going to do is go to Settings and tap there. That'll come up in just a second. There you go. All right, now you want to go to General. You're going to scroll down until you see one that says Restrictions. Right now I have it off. I'm going to enable restrictions. All right, now right there, it kind of skipped right by it because I did a quick edit. I didn't want to put my passcode in. When you click Enable Restrictions, this is the screen you get next for you to put in your passcode. Okay? If you have a 6-digit passcode that you use to unlock your phone, then your restriction passcode is probably the first 4 digits. When you put that restriction passcode in to enable, disable restrictions, all right? Now, then here you'll see this screen next. And as you can see right now, AirDrop is on, okay? But I can easily, by shifting this button right here, all right, I passed AirDrop there for a second, wasn't paying close enough attention. But right here is the button I want. It's on right now. I can turn it to off, okay? Real quick, just by tapping right there. And it's good. There you go. The movie's stuck there for just a second. But you see, now that means that nobody can AirDrop stuff to me. No one can AirDrop stuff to me. That might be a good one if you wanted to disable AirDrop for kids. Notice that you can also disable not only AirDrop here, but you can set restrictions for other things as well. You can restrict Siri, you can restrict the camera, you can restrict access to Safari. All of these things are right there in restrictions. I will tell you though, if you set restrictions, don't forget or lose that restriction code, because what will happen if you make a mistake entering that restriction passcode, okay, then now you're stuck with re-entering it. If you re-enter, and each time you re-enter it, it keeps you out a certain amount longer. It's just like if you forget the passcode to unlock your phone. If you try to unlock it too many times, then you have to go back and use reset through iTunes to reset it. And I have a link to an article that describes how to do restrictions. It doesn't describe the short version that I showed you from the control center, but it does describe how to go into restrictions and do it. Hopefully you will find this information helpful. As I say, if that sounded a little clumsy and disorganized, it's because I put that one together right before the show. It would never have dawned on me that somebody would do something like send those kinds of pictures or other kinds of information. And maybe you just don't want to be bothered. I mean, you know, so that gives you 2 different methods of turning it off. I have AirDrop set up, but I have a very limited number of situations where I use AirDrop. And with that going into the control center, you have a very quick way of turning it off, turning it on, should you need it on a case-by-case basis. Hopefully you'll find that information useful. And as I say, I will have a link to this in the show notes. All right, that's going to just about do it for this week, folks. I know there was a lot of stuff here. I kind of went through it really fast because I wanted to be sure that I got everything in for the night. Hopefully you found the tips helpful. Be sure, as I mentioned, to read that both of those first two forum threads, the one on forum troll and also on the writing a quality post. I think both of those will be very helpful to you. There's been a lot of good things going on in the forum this week. We've answered a lot of questions. Some of the content of the show usually comes from member questions. We have a couple questions that are out right now that we're still working on trying to find the answer, but that's okay. We need a challenge every now and then just to keep us on our toes, so to speak. But that's going to just about do it for me, guys. This has been your host, Sylvester Rock, aka Sly Dude on the forum. If you see me in the forum during the week and you've got a question that you think might be useful for the show, put it in the show thread. Because now that I'm back at work during the day, I'm not on the forum quite as much as I was during the summer, but I do check in just about every day. Rarely do I go more than 48 hours without checking in the forum. So if you have a question or something else that you would like to see discussed on in the video chat, post it in the show note, send me a PM. Either way, I'll get those. I do read through the PMs when I get them. As I say, I'm rarely off the forum for more than 48 hours. So until next week, I'll see you in the forum, guys.